Welcome to the Membership Guys podcast. Kick-ass advice and tips for membership site owners.
Well, hello there. Welcome to episode 209 of the Membership Guys podcast. I'm your host, Mike Morrison, and you are joining me in a very busy, very important week for us here at Membership Guys. We've just rolled out a whole new update, a big refresh of our Membership Guys brand, as well as a big change in the name of our membership. Membersite Academy is no more. Now we have Membership Academy. So, it's been a busy week. It's been months and months worth of work and preparation for this change. So I thought this episode is the perfect time to pull back the curtains and take you behind the scenes of what's gone into updating our brand. Because I know you guys like to get a little bit of the inside track into how we're doing things in our business. And I always love to talk about this stuff as well. So let's just start off with a little bit of backstory. For those of you who listened to episode 200, where you had myself and Callie answering some of our listener questions, we actually talked a little bit about our brand. So if you listen to that episode, you may have picked up on what we were saying about the fact that we've never really been happy with the name Membersite Academy. That's the name of our membership. It's a membership about memberships for membership owners. And we've never really loved the brand. We talked on that episode about how the intention, and right from the beginning, we wanted our membership to be called Membership Academy. Because of course we did, right? Because we're the Membership Guys with Membership Academy. We specialize in memberships. People call memberships. They don't necessarily call them member sites. So obviously, we wanted the membership to be called Membership Academy. And in fact, it was originally. The logo said Membership Academy. We'd recorded courses and workshops in which we referred to our membership as Membership Academy. The domain name was membershipacademy.co.uk. That was a problem. Somebody else already owned the .com and in fact had been running a website at that address for years prior to us doing our thing. So we didn't really have any right to claim that name. We didn't even have any right to be annoyed that somebody else had membershipacademy.com. But we figured, we're UK based and we were kind of starting from scratch. So maybe it's fine. Maybe it's okay that it's a UK domain. So we were moving forward with that being the plan before we launched. It was going to be membershipacademy.co.uk, and it didn't really matter because we were small. We were local. We were starting from scratch in terms of our audience building. That's something we talked about on past episodes. Anyone on our email list or our social followings, these weren't necessarily people who would have been right for the academy because they were people who came to us specifically because they didn't want to learn to do this all themselves, right? So we were starting from scratch. So it was fine that we didn't have the .com. It was fine that it was UK centric. We realized though, that was a bit of a limiting belief. We were playing small. If we wanted to call it Membership Academy, it needed to be membershipacademy.com, but unfortunately somebody else had it. It was a non-starter. We'd reached out to them, we spoke to them, it was quite clear from looking at the site that it wasn't really active. It wasn't really even something they were focusing on at the time. It was just there. But after talking to them, trying to see if we could wrestle that domain name away from them, it was a non-starter. And so at pretty much the last minute, like weeks before we were due to launch membershipacademy.co.uk, we changed it. We didn't want to be limited and to have our business constantly hamstrung by the fact that we were so clearly just targeting the UK market if we'd gone with the UK domain. And we also didn't want to chance it that in 2 or 3 years' time, the guy who ran Membership Academy, he could very well turn around and come to us and say, well, hey, what are you doing? I've got this brand, I've got this website, you're using the name of my product, and, you need to stop. So we changed it. We changed it to Membersite Academy. And the reason for it becoming Membersite Academy is actually because within our agency, so we used to run a web agency, and over the years, we'd started specializing just in memberships. Now, that specialization actually came under a sub-brand of our main agency name. And that sub-brand was membersites.co.uk. So we had something in our business that had the established use of the term member site within the domain name. And so membersites.co.uk, Membersite Academy, that's just how it evolved and went into. So Membersite Academy, weren't thrilled about it, would have still loved for it to be membershipacademy.com, but it was what it was. Name was changed, stuff was re-recorded, logo was tweaked, site was launched, and away we went. And now it's not exactly held us back. We've become a multi-seven-figure business. We've served thousands and thousands of people inside our membership and hundreds of thousands of people outside our membership. So the business didn't suffer at all from not having our first choice for the membership name and for the domain name. But it's always been there, in the back of our minds, niggling away at us, gnawing away at us. And so we've tried numerous times over the years to acquire membershipacademy.com, but those efforts never went anywhere. And so that niggling feeling never went anywhere. There was constantly, even as the membership grew and we broke through all of our goals and we got bigger and bigger than we ever could have anticipated, there was always that little thing of feeling like the name of our membership was our second choice, because it was. Now, at the same time, we'd also been increasingly feeling that the visual identity of the membership guys had started to grow a little stale too. Again, that's something we'd never been 100% happy with from day one. And the reason for that, here's a little secret. The membership guys logo was a template. We bought it for about $10 from graphicriver.net, which is one of the Envato websites from, they do theme forests and stuff like that. We bought it. It was a pre-made template where you just pop your name in, make a couple of little tweaks, and there you go. You've got a logo. $10 template for our logo, and we used it pretty much just as is. Now, that was a very conscious decision made in the name of just wanting to get things started. Now, I could have spent months crafting the perfect brand, getting the logo just right, doing it all custom from scratch. But that would have delayed us. It would have delayed us by several months. Would have delayed the launch of our website, the launch of the podcast, and the launch of the membership. And actually, with hindsight, it turned out that some of our main competitors, they arrived on the scene around 7 to 8 months after we started doing our thing. So who knows? If we'd have actually done it properly, if we hadn't bootstrapped it and bought that logo and done all of that in the name of just getting things going, getting up and running, and if we'd spent 3, 4, 5, 6 months really fussing over getting our logo and our visual identity perfect, it could have ended up being very, very costly, because we'd have lost ground and we wouldn't have been able to build up enough momentum before major competitors entered the market. So, it's funny that $10 template logo got us this far, but it did. However, we knew that it was long overdue an update. So we have a core brand of the membership guys that was feeling dated and a product brand that was never really what we wanted. And then we decided to run a conference. September 2018, we made the decision that we would put on our very own 2-day conference here in the UK. That conference is called Retain Live 2019, and it's happening in September in Newcastle in the UK. And that decision to run our own conference was actually the catalyst to us re-examining our entire brand identity. And truthfully, it all kicked off when we very first saw the logo for Retain Live. It was the first time that we'd actually hired an outside designer to create anything for our business other than graphics for our podcast. And the logo that he'd come back with for the Retain event, it just blew us away. We absolutely loved it. He nailed so much about what we do. And so right away, we started contemplating whether this was a brand that we should be getting behind across our entire business, whether the brand should be Retain. One word, perfectly in tune with the industry we're in. It's a very relevant word. It's a word that focuses on the retention aspect of memberships, which is probably the one key thing that differentiates a membership product from other types of products that need to retain. So it made sense. And the logo rocked. I still love the logo for Retain. Just little touches. The fact that you've kind of got the infinity loop, which again, that feeds in to the recurring element of memberships. It was just so on the money. And honestly, we got a little bit swept up. We loved the look of the logo, the whole color scheme that went with the Retain event. It was fresh, it was new, it was very different from what we were doing in Membership Guys and Membersite Academy. And the one word, the single word of it all, really appealed to me too. So it all seemed to make sense. Retain would be the core brand rather than Membership Guys. You'd have Retain Academy, Retain Live, Retain Podcast, or Retain Radio, or something like that. Retain would be the thing that everything got built around. Now, we had a few little concerns with this early on, mostly around whether the word itself would suggest that maybe we were only focused on the latter stages of the membership journey. Perhaps we were all about the advanced stuff, the growth stuff, and that we weren't beginner friendly. There was also a little bit of concern about whether getting rid of the word membership completely would present a problem. We've always been big fans of company names, brand names that basically do what they say on the tin. The Membership Guys is a brand in which there is no mistake what we are focused on, right? Whereas Retain, it's a little more abstract. And, some brands that do what they say on the tin are fantastic brands. Some brands that are abstract are fantastic brands. I don't think there's a right or wrong. We've definitely always gravitated towards the does what it says on the tin kind of brand. So again, that was a little bit of a concern going in. We didn't want to let that cloud us. We didn't want to let that hold us back. And so we took the idea and we floated it to a few people from our audience. We spoke to some of our members to get their feedback. We also reached out to some trusted friends and entrepreneurs who have a lot of insight, a lot of experience in branding, just to gauge their opinions. Let's just say the reception wasn't great. Nobody hated it, but really nobody was excited about the idea of us moving the entirety of our brand to being centered around Retain. And right across the board, the feedback we were getting from all these conversations we were having was pretty unanimous. And it was that we should be leaning further into the Membership Guys brand. The Membership Guys are who we are. That's the brand that encompasses our values, our style, our approach, everything that's got us to where we are. It's a relaxed, friendly, accessible brand that, yes, does what it says on the tin. And it's a brand that better reflects our goals and our aim to be synonymous with everything membership related. You see the word membership, you think of us. That's what we're striving for, and that's certainly what would be lost with the switch to the Retain brand. So that was a bit of an eye-opener. It was a bit of an awakening. It brought us down to earth from getting carried away with all these different variations of the Retain name, the Retain brand. The fact that all these independent conversations that we were having with members, with people in the entrepreneurial space, with friends, with people from branding, and they were all saying the same thing. So, Retain was out, but the seed was planted for finally getting our brand nailed, for taking it to the next level, for getting away from all these little niggles and all these little things that we've not really liked about the brand identity for Membership Guys, the name of Membersite Academy, the disconnect between the two. It was time to sort it all out. So we took the advice to lean into the Membership Guys brand, but we knew that we just couldn't do it while the membership was called Membersite Academy. It just doesn't make sense for the Membership Guys to run Membersite Academy. It had to have the word membership. Membership Guys, Membership Academy. Membership Guys, Membersite Academy. Well, why are you not the Membersite Guys? Or it just didn't connect. It really just highlighted the fact that, okay, they're called Membersite Academy because they couldn't get the domain name, right? And we didn't want that to be something that was part of the makeup behind our branding. The membership had to be called Membership Academy. We could have worked around it. We could have had Membership-Academy or Membership.Academy or the Membership Guys Academy. We could have worked around it, but that's what we've been doing so far. We've been working around it, never quite satisfied with it, but, just kind of throwing up our hand and say, oh, well, it's not exactly hurting our business. We didn't want to keep working around it. We wanted to finally get this nailed, to finally being able to take a whole brand presence and brand identity up to that next level, to have the confidence to do things that we haven't yet done because we knew that the branding just wasn't where we wanted it to be. We had to have membershipacademy.com. So we went back to the guy who owned it, absolutely determined that we wouldn't come away without that domain name. It took a lot of back and forth, a lot of negotiating, but a deal was finally struck. And finally, we gained ownership of both the domain and the rights to use the name Membership Academy. And so the table is now set. Membership Guys, Membership Academy, as it should always have been. Now we needed to update and refresh our brand identity to really tie everything together. So with the decision made that we're definitely leaning into the Membership Guys brand, and now we've got membershipacademy.com, we're all set to go on refreshing that brand identity. But before we jumped into that, this was the perfect opportunity for us to revisit our core values, the goals of the business, all that stuff that truly makes a brand a brand. Because a mistake that we see so many people making is thinking that your brand is just your logo. It's not. Your logo, your color scheme, the fonts you use, all the other visuals you use, they're all just shorthand for your actual brand. There's a quote from Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, that says, "Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room." That is absolutely spot on. Your brand is what people know, understand, think, feel, and remember about your business when they see your logo, hear your name, spot your advert, visit your website, or interact with you in any way. It's shorthand. Brand is perception, experience, emotion. It's so much more than just a logo, than just the visuals. So to build a really effective brand, you have to go deeper than just the visual identity. Now, of course, for us, what we were doing isn't a rebrand. It was a refresh of our visual identity, as well as bringing the Academy product closer under the already established Membership Guys brand. Now, of course, for us, this wasn't a rebrand. It was a refresh. A total refresh of our visual identity, as well as bringing the Academy closer under the already established Membership Guys brand. So it's a realignment and a refresh, not a rebrand. However, it was still a perfect opportunity and perfect timing for us to revisit all of those things that I just talked about, to revisit our core values, revisit the way in which we're serving our audience, how we conduct ourselves, the perception we create, the experience we provide, the emotions we evoke. Honestly, on that front, there's not a whole lot changing. We're still the same as we've always been. We're still true to our values and everything we do in our business. But revisiting what is at the heart of what our brand is did make us realize that actually, in really ramping up the new visual identity, this is a great chance for us to really turn all that stuff up to 11. We need to put even more of ourselves into the brand. We need to fight even harder to communicate our principles and our values to our audience in the name of making sure that our audience are all kept on the right track and that they're not being led astray by the shadier elements of our industry. This renewed focus on our brand has definitely galvanized us, and you're definitely going to be seeing a lot more from us on those fronts. So yeah, even though this is essentially just a refresh, we're really glad we took the time to revisit what our brand actually is to ensure we're on the right track before we just got lost in the visual stuff and making the nice logo and moving websites around and so on. I think that's something everybody should do every once in a while in their business, revisiting their brand, evaluating the way in which they're conducting themselves, the way in which they're presenting themselves, and ensuring that it's totally aligned with your values, with your goals, with the experience, the emotions, all that sort of stuff that you want to trigger when people think about your business. Making sure that you're doing the right things to ensure that the stuff people say when you're not in the room is what you would hope it would be. So that's absolutely something people should be doing if you're just developing your brand and just starting out. But it's worth doing this periodically, whether you're rebranding, whether you're refreshing, it doesn't matter. Should be doing it fairly regularly just to keep yourself on track and keep yourself true to how you want to operate your business and how you want to be perceived. So anyway, this whole refresh, great opportunity for us to do just that. But with that done, with that all reaffirmed, that's when the real work started, designing the new brand identity. Now, I decided to take this on myself. I wasn't quite sure whether that was the right decision. I've worked hard to entrust design tasks for our business to other people to a point where actually now I'm quite comfortable in outsourcing that and not being too much of a control freak. But this was so big and so important to our business, I had to give it a shot and take it on myself first rather than just picking out a designer and leaving it all to them. Now, we had actually tested the water with another designer when we were originally thinking about rebranding to Retain Academy, but the work that they did just didn't hit the mark for us. I think it was the right call for me to do this. Very early on, I landed on a concept that both Callie and I really, really loved. It was pretty lucky that actually we got there so early in the process of playing around with different ideas, because over the years, whenever I've had those little niggles and those little doubts about not loving our brand, I've often sketched out ideas and tinkered around in Photoshop and Illustrator trying to design an alternative, but nothing has ever come close to anything that would work. But straight out of the gate on this whole process of refreshing the brand, I kind of hit it out of the park, if I say so myself. I do believe a big part of that is the fact that actually we took that time to revisit our brand identity, revisit the core of what our business and our brand are all about before we got into the visual stuff. So we landed on that concept. It was a winning concept. I played around with a few other concepts just to make sure we weren't just falling in love with the first one we saw. But yeah, that very first concept that we came up with just so on the money for us, exactly what we were shooting for. So we moved forward with that. I tinkered, tweaked, refined, and developed that concept. And it became the visual identity that we've just rolled out to our websites, social, and so on. Now, it's really hard to dive into the visual stuff too much on an audio podcast. So this next bit is probably better if you head over to themembershipguys.com, or maybe you pull up our Facebook page or our Facebook group just to see what we're actually talking about. So I just want to give kind of a few notes on the new branding, just so you've got an idea of how it all came together and how some of the thought processes behind the things we've just been talking about revisiting your brand values and all that stuff, actually connect through to the visuals. So within this new logo, definitely my favorite part and probably the key part of it is the icon, the MG icon, where you've got the letter M tailing into the letter G for Membership Guys. Again, this is where it's better to actually have seen our new branding, our new logo. But that's so much more than just being a cool icon. It's got a lot of layers to it. This is actually one of the things that there's a lot more going on, a lot more thought gone into it than most people realized. Now, I mentioned how one of our core aims is to make sure that our audience are getting the right guidance and that they're not being led astray. Because this world of online business can be a cesspool. So we want to be a guiding light through all the shadiness, all the murkiness. We protect our people from the dodgier elements in our industry. So using a shield shape for our brand icon, so the brand icon is very much based on that shield shape, it was a bit of a no-brainer, right? It feeds into the whole protection of our audience. You know, we are the shield that guards the realms of memberships from the con men and the shite talkers. Sorry, I'm a huge Game of Thrones geek. Anyone who watches Game of Thrones will know what I just did there. That really tickled me the first time I thought about it, and it made Callie laugh when I first said it. So it's totally worth throwing in, and it's totally worth this episode getting an explicit rating in iTunes just for me to say shite talkers instead of White Walkers. I'm such a big nerd. All right, anyway, also sticking with the shield thing, the previous MemberSite Academy logo was also based on a shield shape. So it's kind of a way of having that little nod to that legacy there, incorporating the pre-existing element, a little bit of the old, and bringing it up to date with the new. So again, when we're bringing the Academy and the Membership Guys together, being able to just take nods from one brand and incorporate to the other, again, really, really important for us. Now, the shape of the M and the G, they also kind of look, when you look at it, and hopefully if you do have it in front of you, if you look at that, it kind of has similarities to like a superhero mask, or even a Lucha Libre wrestling mask. Again, both very, very fitting for two massive nerds. It also kind of looks like a cat. Now, in fact, an earlier version of that icon, it had sharper points at the top of the M, so they came to a point rather than having the flat head. And that really, really made it look like cat ears. So again, anyone who knows us knows how fitting that is. So you've obviously got the whole kind of brand values thing going on with us basically protecting our audience. You've got the nod to the legacy of Memberside Academy, but also like stupid nerdy stuff that is totally us, that again just makes us feel good about that logo, and no one else is really going to notice it, but you know, it's kind of who we are. I was also very, very deliberate about the joining of the two letters and where they joined and how this kind of affected the overall composition. It's kind of like an infinity symbol. Like, there's a couple of kinks and quirks within the pathway, but actually if you look at where the M starts and where the G ends, it gives it that Mobius thing going on. So it's a bit like an infinity symbol, which is something that's very fitting for recurring subscriptions, and also kind of ties in to being a bit of a subtle nod to something that we teach a lot, which is the concept of the member lifecycle. So we teach the member lifecycle within the Academy as being something which is a continuous cycle rather than something that starts and ends. So with the right approach in your membership business, the member life cycle keeps going and going and going and going. And even if somebody leaves, that's not the end of the journey. It continues. And so again, yeah, something in having that infinity motif. Again, just a subtle nod. It's not deliberately designed to be a Mobius symbol, but that thought process and that theme was definitely a part of deciding kind of where the bits of the icon started and ended. So I totally know nobody is going to read into this anywhere near as much as what I'm explaining to you. I just wanted to kind of not just give you some interesting little tidbits, but also just give you some insight into the kind of things people think about when they're actually developing logos and icons. So the other real big thing about that icon, it's reversible. That's the most pivotal part of this new branding. When you flip that icon horizontally, MG becomes MA. Membership Guys becomes Membership Academy. That's a perfect representation of those two previously separate brands being brought together. And it gives us something cool to play with in how we present those brands across our marketing. So, you know, when we've been kind of announcing the new brand and the logos, we've got that little animation going on where the MG flips, becomes the MA, the Guys becomes Academy, and those two previously very different, separate, distinct brands are completely unified. So, all of that went into that little icon that appears within our new logo, within all of our branding. So a lot of thought had gone into it. And again, do not expect anyone in their right mind to look at that icon without having heard this and think, oh wow, isn't it amazing how they managed to make it look like a superhero, a cat, a wrestler, while also being a little bit like a Mobius strip and also being reversible and also nod towards Memberside Academy and the membership life cycle. Like, no one's going to think that, but just the fact that actually we thought that makes it a more effective, more impactful brand. All right, so the other thing, again, more notes on the new branding. There's a big, heavy emphasis on the word membership. Again, that's the unifying word. Membership Guys, Membership Academy. Again, our company aim is to be synonymous with the word membership. So it makes sense that this is the part of the logo that's given the most weight. And it's because of that this whole refresh just couldn't have worked with Memberside Academy. That's why it had to be Membership Academy. And contrasting that, the Guys part of the logo has been designed in a way that makes it interchangeable. Again, to reinforce that emphasis on membership, Guys can become Academy, Accelerator, Mastermind. These are all names for things that we've had before, but now they can more seamlessly integrate into the core Membership Guys brand. So this, again, it's all in line with what we talked about before, really heavily leaning in to the Membership Guys as being the heart of everything. There's a couple of other little things you might notice, little touches that again, most people probably won't appreciate, but that add to the overall effectiveness of our visual identity, and that we're very much deliberate in our choices on making them part of our brand. So previously, again, we're kind of sticking with the same color scheme, but we've never really gone with anything other than flat colors in how we've used those. The new visual identity, there's a much greater use of gradients. And again, that's kind of symbolic, it's deliberate. The gradients where you're blending two colors, it's kind of representative of blending of both myself and Callie. It's bringing together the two sides, the two different personalities, expertise, all that sort of stuff. Bringing them together, blending them together as part of the brand. We've also are incorporating the use of custom patterns for our visual identity using line icons. These icons are related to various different elements of online memberships, and we've actually created multiple variations. So you'll see this as the weeks and months go on, and as we're putting more and more content out using the new brand. We've got different variations of our patterns that we'll actually see in these graphics. So we've got a general one that incorporates icons related just generically to memberships, but we've also got 3 different alternatives for the 3 core content segments that we focus on: planning, building, growing. I spoke before on the podcast about how segmentation has been such a critical part of our strategy. And again, if you go to themembershipguys.com, you'll see that we, straight out the gate, we are segmenting the content. What do you need help with? Planning, building, or growing? Again, we've reflected those segments and that use of segmentation in the creation of these patterns. So when we're creating things like workbooks or slides for a course that's all about the planning part of the journey, then the patterns that you'll see at use there will be slightly different. They'll be tailored to that segment. Same for building, same for growth. We also have a version just for the podcast. So if you look at our podcast graphics, you'll see that, again, that pattern's just slightly different. You've got some icons in there, like a microphone, like headphones, again, just to make it just that little difference, just that little touch. And we've also got a Membership Guys set and a Membership Academy set. So again, it's just a nice little extra touch. Not something most people will notice or care about, but it's these little subtle touches that I think makes for an overall stronger brand. And honestly, much of what we're doing with the new visual identity is taking existing things within our brand that we've been doing before and just bringing them out into the forefront even further. So just as an example, we talk about the line icons as part of the pattern. Now, we already make a use of a lot of these line icon illustrations across all of our websites. So now we're just bringing that out even more by incorporating them into a pattern that's going to be a big part of our visuals. And another thing that, again, we're doing just more of, both Callie and I have been making a lot more of an effort over the last year or so to be more present in our brand, as in literally to have us, photos of us, our big smiley happy faces in our brand. So we've been getting on camera in our videos more, getting onto Facebook Live, doing our member Q&As on camera instead of behind a slideshow, that sort of stuff. Again, that's something that we're bringing out even more. So you'll see our faces around a lot more. You'll see me on the podcast artwork instead of an illustration. So anyway, those are just some notes, a little bit of an insight into our thought process in approaching the creation of the new brand identity, into how we're connecting that up to our company values and the stuff that really is at the heart of our brand. And the funny thing is, I mentioned earlier about that $10 template that we used as the logo for Membership Guys, and that logo has pretty much been the brand. The whole visual representation of the brand has kind of been tied up in that logo. And like I said, we went that route instead of designing something custom, purely so we could just get going, purely in the interest of speed and execution and having one less thing to delay us and set us back. But with this refresh, we've had the luxury of doing it right, of taking our time. And so as part of this process, we've been able to actually create a proper library of brand assets. So honestly, for the first time, we now have a proper library that contains our logo in a wide variety of different formats, sizes, colors. We've got a version which is just the icon for certain situations. We've got a version with the icon and the text together. Pretty much any version, any format, any size of the logo that we'll ever need. We've got a library folder with pre-made patterns. So all those different variations of the patterns that I talked about before, where we've got the different ones for the segments, different one for the podcast, ones for Membership Guys, Membership Academy. Again, these are all there now in the right place, easily findable within this brand asset library. We've got backgrounds, so we pre-made lots of variations of backgrounds that utilize the main colors of the brand. So different gradients, so blue into teal, blue into pink, pink into teal, different orders, so just every possible combination of the backgrounds with and without the pattern, with a dark pattern, with no pattern, with a light pattern. We've got templates for our social, for our podcast graphics, for workbooks, for slides, and more importantly, we've actually got formal brand guidelines. So this is actually a comprehensive document that details how all of these things I've just talked about should be used, what fonts we use, what sizes they should be at, what font to use in a heading versus what font to use in regular body text, our color schemes, example usage of all the different assets, things to avoid, and so on, and things like how much space should be around logos. All of these sorts of things, I think, are core to a well-established brand identity, and they are absolutely vital if you're going to be working with other people who will be using your brand and creating things around your brand. So designers, printers, and so on. And these sort of brand guidelines are really important in ensuring that you stay consistent too. Those branding guidelines are something that have been missing from our business due to how things got started with our visual identity and brand, due to the fact that we just decided, you know what, let's forego that right now. Let's just get going and let's use that $10 template. And honestly, while that let us execute quicker and has undoubtedly played a part in how we've been able to get to where we are, it's also led to some inconsistencies in our visual output over the years. But those new guidelines, along with our library of different design assets, it's going to make it so much easier to stay consistent and keep everything on point with our visual identity going forward. And, we just recently started working with a new designer, and I can't tell you how happy it made me to be able to say, okay, here's the Dropbox link to our brand library. Here are our brand guidelines. And right away, that sets the stage for her to be able to do great things using the brand that we've created without me worrying about whether or not they're getting things right, because we've given them all that they need to be able to actually do their job well. So there's a lot of work involved in this, but the funny thing is, most people probably won't notice. I think when it comes to stuff like this, nobody's ever going to care about something like a brand refresh as much as you do. So if you're going through this process, I would definitely say you should prepare yourself for nobody really noticing. Because really, if you think of it from an audience point of view, if you visit themembershipguys.com today, you're probably maybe going to notice that there's a new logo. Maybe you wouldn't have known that the logo was new if I hadn't pointed out to you. Maybe you've not paid any attention to the logo before. Maybe you might notice some things look different. The font for headers is a different font. The actual background in the heading area now has a gradient with the patterns, whereas before it was a flat color. But other than that, there's not that much difference. It doesn't look like months worth of work, nor should it. So if you are going through a rebrand or a refresh yourself, don't be offended if people aren't falling over themselves to say nice things. That's definitely something that Callie and myself have to keep reminding us. Like, this is actually so much more work than anyone will ever realize. Most people won't notice, won't care because they're not affected by it. But the bit that is going to affect people a little bit more is the changing of the website address for our membership, Membersite Academy to membershipacademy.com. It might seem a simple enough change, but when you're dealing with an existing membership and you're trying to change the URL for it, it's a little bit like changing the wheels on a moving car while also trying to drive it. Now, I'm not going to delve into all the technical ins and outs of how you make that change on this show, because frankly, if you're not a developer, you should not try to do this yourself. Trust me, I have 20 plus years of experience in web development and programming. And I mean writing code from scratch, not just installing stuff and clicking some buttons. So I'm well equipped for this kind of thing, and even I've earned a couple of dozen extra grey hairs throughout this process. If you're just updating the look and feel of your site, or maybe you're changing the domain name of your blog, but your membership, where you've got active members, is all staying where it is, then that's not so bad. But if your rebrand involves changing the domain name of a membership site that's already up and running, then seek professional help, because it can be extremely complicated making that sort of change in a way that means your members transition from one side to the other seamlessly. So, suffice to say, getting everything ready for switching from MemberSite Academy to Membership Academy is a big undertaking, lots of moving parts. Definitely get professional help if your rebrand or refresh of what you're doing involves changing the domain name on an active membership site. You've got to be crazy to do that. Yes. All right. So, as I said before, there's only so much people are going to care about your rebrand. With us, it's a slightly different kettle of fish, because many people in our audience, they actually learn from seeing what we do ourselves with our own business. So there's a little bit more of an interest in hearing why and how we do what we do. But even then, we know it's not as big a deal with others as it is for us. It's more about what this change empowers us to do from here on out. But that said, in terms of letting people know about the rebrand, we are still making a little bit of noise about it. I've been teasing it a little on Instagram over the last month. Basically, it's dumb. But I took the shield icon, split it up into 4 quarters, created some graphics out of it, and then each Monday for the last month, I've been posting a graphic with a different quarter with no explanation. I think the first one, I just put the number 4. ... and then a week later a different quarter of the shield, and then 3... So it's counting down to it. And then when I reveal the whole thing this coming Monday, or when the time this podcast comes out, this past Monday, the whole shield icon will be revealed. There'll be a little animation. And yeah, it's simple, it's dumb, but it was easy and quick enough to do. Stokes a little bit of curiosity, and it gives some context for when the announcement does happen. We've also got a Facebook Live happening on the day where we unveil the new brand. So we're going to be talking a little bit about it and actually showing people the whole brand in context, showing people the transition of the logo from Membership Guys to Membership Academy, as part of announcing the name change of MSA to Membership Academy. To be honest, that's probably the more important change. That's the thing we really want to get out of people. The fact that membersiteacademy.com is now membershipacademy.com, because that's the main thing of substance that is changing. We ordered branded baseball caps and branded t-shirts with a new logo, mostly with that Facebook Live announcement in mind, but you'll be seeing more of us wearing branded swags in the weeks and months to come. And again, talking about teasing things out on social media, I've just been every now and then in my Instagram stories, I've had my new branded up baseball cap with the new logo on. Yeah, just to see if there's any eagle-eyed people spot that and wonder what it is, or when they see the new brand, think, that's what that was. So yeah, and of course there's this podcast episode as well, which we're going to be promoting throughout the week, and in our newsletter, which we send to the whole list, just making people aware of the rebrand. That's probably it as far as fanfare for the brand refresh goes. Again, we don't want to overdo it, because there comes a point where maybe you start to be a bit delusional about how much people need to know about this, how much of a song and dance you need to make about it. Now, in terms of our members, we actually told them about this change over a week before the whole new brand went live. We announced it during the Academy Show, which is a monthly video that we record for our members, where we talk about, different wins and launches and stuff like that. But we also round up any news and announcements from the Academy too. So those guys are all well informed before anyone else, and they're told about the fact we're going to be switching URLs. We then email all of our members ahead of the switchover, just to let them know there'll be downtime, let them know roughly how long the site will be down for, and also let them know that while the web address will be changing, things like their bookmarks, their content, everything else stays the same. Their content, their subscription, all the links will just all transfer over, and everything gets redirected automatically. And then finally, we also added a little message across the top of membershipacademy.com. So once people are actually in there, there's a strip across the top, which we'll probably leave in place for a few weeks, that actually just says Membersite Academy is now Membership Academy, because it's unrealistic for us to be able to go through the whole back catalogue of our membership content and change all of the videos so that the logo is the new logo and all of that. So some people joining the site will see a lot of references to Membersite Academy. They'll see a logo that isn't familiar to them. So we're going to have that message up in place to let people know about it. And actually, we're mentioning on the welcome page for new members, you'll probably see some mentions of Membersite Academy. That was what this place was previously called, recently rebranded to Membership Academy. So just in case you were confused, don't worry, you're still in the right place. Just acknowledging it, because again, I don't think doing this kind of switch up, I don't think it necessitates having to redo anything that might have the old name and brand on. It's so much easier to actually just point out to people, hey, it used to be called this, it's now called this. So if you see any references to the old stuff, that explains it. Job done. No one's going to lose their mind about the inconsistencies on that front. And that's it. That's everything that we've done, that we're doing. That's the whole inside story on updating our brand. Hopefully you found it interesting to get that little bit of a peek behind the scenes and how it all came about, our thought process, the steps we took to make it happen. There's definitely so much more goes into this kind of thing than I think meets the eye, but if you are, again, going through the process of developing a new brand, updating your existing brand, revisiting your brand values, your visual identity, then hopefully getting a little bit of a peek into our brains, our thought process is helping you out on that front. Now, while all of this has been mostly about digging into our particular situation, our process, there's definitely some takeaways here that hopefully will help anyone else who's going through or thinking about a rebrand. So first and foremost, to reiterate, remember, your brand is not your logo. You need to go deeper than just the visuals. The visuals, the logo, they're just shorthand. Consider the bigger picture and how everything fits together. Before rebranding, seek feedback from people that you trust. Don't rush into it. Take your time to make sure you do it right. Now, if you are in the early stages, then there's nothing wrong with just doing what you can with what you have and executing quicker. But when it comes time to do it properly, first of all, recognize that actually bootstrapping your brand is just deferring doing the work on actually properly developing it. So when the time comes to do that, make sure that you're getting feedback from people. Don't just plow through it. Don't just half-ass it. When you create your brand, make sure you develop brand guidelines. Create an actual brand guidelines document and a library of visual assets. They'll be invaluable for keeping you consistent and making it easier for you to work with others, to hire other designers, work with printers and stuff like that. If your rebrand involves changing the domain name of your membership, make sure you hire someone to help with the tech. It can be a minefield. Take that from someone with 2 decades of experience in web development. If I'm telling you that this is not something you should tackle, please believe me. And I'm not doing that to tout for work, because I don't do this work for other people. So, there you go. Anyway, again, don't expect people to care as much about this as you do. Definitely tease the change. Definitely talk about it. Maybe create some behind the scenes material like I have for this show. But don't take it personally if people are ambivalent about the fact that you're changing up your logo or your brand. You could use a rebrand or a brand refresh as an excuse to do a promo, maybe a special offer. That's something we considered, but honestly, we've got too much other stuff going on. We're still pushing tickets for the Retain Live event. We've got the 4th anniversary of Membership Academy. Yeah, that's going to happen a lot, isn't it? The 4th anniversary of Membership Academy at the end of August. So squeezing in a promo around our brand update just wouldn't work for us. But it could very well work for you, so that's something to consider. And finally, if you are changing your membership domain, make sure that you communicate the change to your members, explain what's going to happen, keep them informed about downtime, about the implications the change will have, reassure them that, the content that they posted in the community or whatever, their profiles, all of that will still be intact. Communication is key if there are any changes you're making that directly affect your member experience. Okay, so just some of the takeaways from our own journey, from our own process. Hopefully that's going to come in handy for any of you who are going through this journey yourselves. That is it. That's the end of the show. I do hope that you found it useful, that you've enjoyed it. I like pulling the curtain back and showing you guys behind the scenes, and from what you guys tell me, you like it too. So I hope you found this episode useful, interesting, whatever it is, and I hope that you like what we've done with the place. I hope you like the new brand, the new logo, the whole new visual identity. I'd love to hear what you think. Let me know on social. If you're on Twitter, hit me up at Membership Guys. If you're on Instagram, at Membership Guy. Just Guy, not guys. It's just me on there. Or, of course, if you're in our Facebook group at talkmemberships.com, then let us know in there what you think about the new brand. As I said before, we're not expecting people to be bowled over by this. It's not something that's particularly important to anyone other than us, but I would really appreciate it. If you like what we've done, just say something nice, please, so we don't cry and get too depressed. All right, that is it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this special extended episode of the Membership Guys podcast. I truly appreciate each and every one of you giving me your time today. Hopefully it's been worth your while. I'll be back again next week with another installment of the Membership Guys podcast. If you enjoyed this week's episode of the Membership Guys podcast, we invite you to check out membershipacademy.com. The Membership Academy is the essential resource for anyone at any stage of starting, growing, and running a membership website. Whether you're still trying to figure out what your idea is going to be, or whether your website is already up and running and you're just looking for ways to grow it and attract new members, then the Membership Academy can help you to get to the next level. With our extensive course library, monthly training, exclusive member-only discounts, perks, and tools, and a supportive, active community to help you along the way with feedback, encouragement, and advice, the Membership Academy is the perfect place to be for anyone looking to start, manage, and grow a successful membership website. Check it out at membershipacademy.com.